Hello and welcome to the very first inaugural Money Zen video series. And today we have with me my dear, dear friend, Chris Girbes-Pierce. Chris is the founder and CEO of Enlightened Wealth Management, and he also happens to be a dear personal friend. He worked with me when I ran my own wealth management practice, Money Zen, and I got to see uphand and in person how absolutely amazing he is. As a human being, he's one of those people that makes you want to be a better person just for being in his orbit. So when I saw that he had written a piece called What Nutrition Can Teach You About Money on Mind, Body, Green, I thought, oh my gosh, I have got to introduce him to you all. So I've invited Chris to come chat with us informally here today and tell us a little bit about the piece and to tell us a little bit about what money can teach us about nutrition. But before we do that, I want to start off by asking Chris to just tell us a little bit about your wealth management practice and how on earth did you come up with this idea to link together nutrition and financial tips?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm really grateful to be here, and of course, grateful for my friendship with you, Manisha, and honored to be here on this video cast with you. A little bit about Enlightened Wealth Management. Enlightened Wealth Management is headquartered here in Santa Monica, California, and it was born out of actually working with you at Money Zen. And we do financial life planning. So that includes everything from helping folks dig into their personal family cash flow, all the way through actually managing investment portfolios and everything in between. We work with entrepreneurs, and a lot of our clients are actually in the health and wellness space as well, which is really cool. So that's a little bit about Enlightened Wealth Management. And the second part of the question, which is how I came about the idea of comparing the financial services industry with nutrition and health and wellness. I think it has a bit to do with basically my path in life. I grew up as an athlete, and so I was always into health and fitness growing up, but like most people, I knew almost nothing about nutrition. And I totally remember graduating from college and learning all about on my own through hours and hours of research about supplements and the right types of food to eat and those types of things. And so that's always been an interest of mine. And as I've been here in LA, that interest has just continued to grow. And I started seeing, given my background in wealth management and being a financial advisor, I started to see all kinds of parallels. And in fact, in my article, I think I mentioned 4 or 5 similarities, but I think there are probably endless similarities, at least 10 or 20 that I can think of, if not more. So,
well, and one thing I want to highlight for people is when Chris talked about learning about supplements after getting out of college, it wasn't just like Chris was a casual athlete in college. Chris, will you tell viewers what you did when you were in college, sports-wise?
Well, that's funny. I played baseball and football in college, and I played at a small liberal arts college in the Midwest. And shortly after graduating, I actually got signed by a professional football team in the Arena Football League. And so to Manisha's point, I really was committed to maximizing, optimizing my own personal performance. So I did take it very seriously. I wasn't just a casual, wanted to be healthy. I really viewed it as my livelihood at the time. So yeah, that was my sports experience.
Well, and I want to highlight that because I think to me, I see a parallel there with personal finance, in that I often meet business people who are really successful at what they do. They may be a dentist or a graphic designer or an architect or just having a killer career in technology. And so they think like, what is this? I'm so good at what I do, but I don't understand anything about this money stuff. And so the parallel, you were this amazing record-setting college athlete that went on to become a professional athlete, and there were pieces about nutrition that you didn't know. And so the parallels there are interesting. And that actually is a great segue to the first question that I had for you about the article. In the Mind, Body, Green article, your first point is to read labels. Tell us about that. Tell us how that nutritional concept plays into personal finances.
Well, I will talk about an analogy that I'll use is the Starbucks pumpkin spice latte. I don't know if you
Mm.
like those, Manisha, or
Yes, I do, and I have a feeling you're going to tell me that after I know what's in it, I shouldn't be drinking them.
well, there's good news, bad news, but then good news. So you'll be all right. Manisha's a coffee fiend, so I had a feeling you might like those pumpkin spice lattes. But essentially, a handful of years now, there's a woman named Vani Hari. She's known as the Food Babe. And I don't know Vani, but I actually have read a lot of her content over the years, and I am a big fan. She dug in and asked Starbucks, what is in your pumpkin spice latte? And interestingly enough, they didn't actually give up that information very easily in the beginning. But she kept pressing because she's, very serious about this stuff. And basically, at the end of the day, the pumpkin spice latte had zero real pumpkin in the entire recipe and was filled with artificial chemicals and a toxic amount of sugar and milk from GMO cows and cows that had been raised and eating soy and corn and anyhow, an elixir of poison essentially. And it was one of Starbucks' best-selling household name drinks. I mean, across the country, kind of everyone knows what that is from Starbucks, right? Or a lot of folks. So the parallels are that as I began working my way through the financial services industry, throughout the different positions I've held and whatnot, I started to see similarities in financial products. So things like mutual funds or in household names, even within firms and types of advisors, but essentially funds and annuities and insurance and different types of insurance products. What I started learning was that there are all kinds of ingredients inside, embedded within these products that are essentially the equivalent of financial poison for us as consumers. And nobody was talking about it, at least nobody that I knew at the time. And these products were just being sold to folks, again, just like the millions of people out there drinking pumpkin spice lattes and nobody asking questions and nobody out there educating. And so that's what I mean by read labels. There are a lot of hidden costs, hidden fees, a lot of functionality of various financial products out there that you just would be really shocked if you looked essentially at the label, at the actual documents, and asked your advisor or the person selling you these products really important question, like what exactly is inside this?
I love that point because I think one thing that I've noticed is as a result of how the media lately has been focusing a lot on the role of advisors and the cost of working with advisors, people become much more aware of costs in general. And so I'm noticing a lot of people will say, well, how much is the advisor going to charge me? Which is an important question, but I feel like the very first question should be what's inside all of these investments? What exactly are they going to be putting you in, and what are those investments going to charge? Because, and I'm sure you've seen this too, oftentimes I see portfolios where people come and they have mutual funds that they think are, or investments that they think are, low cost, that they're not paying their advisor anything, but the funds themselves have fees of 2 or sometimes even higher percentage points. And so reading the labels is gigantic. And that makes me think of your second point in the article, where you say, don't ignore the evidence. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you mean by that statement?
Sure, I will. And I do want to give you the light at the end of the tunnel to wrap up the pumpkin spice latte conversation, which is the fact that my understanding is the Food Babe really, really affected a lot of change. And my understanding is that Starbucks has since upgraded the recipe so that it's much more healthy for us now. So there's the information to not make you too disappointed.
I'm relieved to hear that, because for me, the evidence that the fall holiday season is about to begin is when the pumpkin spice latte is out and I drink my first one. It's a big ritual to shift seasons for me. So I'm glad to know I don't have to give that up. That's
right. And so next time you will walk into a coffee shop, ask and read the label of the ingredients in it. And the next time listeners out there speaking with their financial advisors, ask them to read the labels to you as well. So there you go. Remember that, one and the same. the second point about don't ignore, not ignoring the evidence and pay attention to the evidence. So essentially at this point in the US, I think most people know that if we eat leafy greens and if we stay away from certain types of carbohydrates and we eat vegetables and lean, organic, grass-fed proteins, that we will be much more healthy than if we're eating high sugar, high carb diets. That's pretty common knowledge. Well, the way that became common knowledge is that the evidence shows. And if you've ever tried this on your own body, you'll see that when you follow, those rules, you begin to, whether it's shed weight or have more energy or clearer skin, the proof is in the pudding. And nobody, I don't think at this point would argue, if you ever met someone that said, nah, it's actually healthier to eat a bunch of bad fats and, a bunch of French fries and Big Macs, that's actually healthier. You would never hear anybody saying that because the evidence is just too clear in the other direction. And with financial services and investments, it's really the same. I'm speaking specifically about evidence-based investing. The two camps in investing, active management, which is the idea that we can pay money managers fees and they'll in turn, in exchange for our high fees in a lot of cases, outperform the market for us. There's just loads and loads of academic evidence that shows that that's a losing strategy. So we have to ask ourselves, well, if that's a losing strategy, why is it still being pushed in such a big way out there in our, everyday financial lives? And I think the reason has to come down to, big marketing dollars and a lot of money to be made and whatnot. But if you're paying attention to the evidence, just like in health, you will set yourself up with an evidence-based portfolio, stick to the plan, and have an advisor help you along the way.
And it's so interesting to me because I will meet people who are just consumed with following the markets and paying attention and wanting to know, as you and I are having this conversation right now, there's just been a historic vote in France and the markets are reacting to it. And, we are still in the first 100 days of a new presidency and markets are reacting to that. And there's a lot of activity going on. And when I hear people talking about that, I think the evidence tells us so clearly that is not what you need to be focused on. There's another style of investing, this evidence-based investing using index-like funds that so clearly will keep your mind and your soul in a more refreshed state. And if you just focus on that, you can ignore all of this other stuff. And it's the same thing with it's the exact same thing with eating. So yeah. I love that parallel.
On the same note, like ignoring all the stuff that's out there. So I'd equate that to our ads we see for all these restaurants on TV. I mean, there's just so much poison being, in our everyday normal, marketing life that is so bad for us. And, if we're caring about ourselves and doing the right thing for our bodies, we ignore it. We do the best we can to ignore it. And how much better, I talk all the time about return on investment versus return on life. Mm-hmm. And how much higher is your return on life when you just know that you have the right strategy because all the evidence says so, and you don't have to worry about all of the media and the different messages that you're being bombarded with every day. That is money's in.
Yeah. No, it is an enlightened way to invest. It really is staying focused on the greens. Well, that brings up another point that you raise in the piece, which is don't assume familiar means safe and healthy. Can you explain what you meant by that?
In these ads that we see every day, they become a part of our normal life. When seeing the same message enough times, it begins to feel safe. And there have been studies that show psychologically that familiarity is, we start to, over a period of time, equating that with safety. So the more we see a brand name, the more we see a product, we begin to think it's normal and that inherently it's safe. And that can be dangerous because, as we know, a lot of the stuff being pushed on us out there by marketing is not good for us, is not safe. In fact, a lot of times dangerous. So same thing with investing. familiarity with safety is a big mistake that even really smart people make in investing. And I'll just give a couple examples of this. We might think that our company stock is safe. Because why? Because we show up there every day. We get our paycheck every day. We see more people getting hired. Everyone's smiling. We have our company picnic. The company's growing. We get our bonuses, and it's tangible. We can, feel it and see it and smell it. And it's really natural and normal to get caught up in that. Well, our company, my company, must be safe because I have, personal really high familiarity with it. And what that a lot of times turns into is investors being overweighted to their own company stock. Even though there's no evidence whatsoever showing that that's a good idea, in fact, in most cases that that's a bad idea, we see it all over the place. Enron employees were way overly invested in Enron stock. And I have a friend actually who's worked for Anheuser-Busch and now a bigger company, InBev, for years and years and years. And I know that he personally has most of his portfolio in that stock, but he's familiar with the company, and that's why. And it's just an investment mistake that can be really dangerous. So that's my link between familiarity with with foodstuffs that aren't necessarily good for us, and we just want to watch out for that on the financial and investment side as well.
Yeah, and a lot of times you hear this advice where people say, well, buy what you know, and buy stocks and companies where you shop. But just because you enjoy shopping at a certain kind of store, unless you are a trained financial analyst and you love poring over 10Ks and 10Qs and running discounted cash flow analyses yourself, simply because you enjoy shopping at a place does not necessarily mean that that's a stock that you should be buying. And in fact, you and I are both of the same mind that people shouldn't be buying individual stocks to begin with. They should be buying broad baskets of diversified index-like funds. But that was another common mistake I see oftentimes when people are trying to get young adults to start investing. Parents will pass along, well, buy shares in something you know. So I love that you bring up this point, not to confuse something that's safe with necessarily being something that's healthy.
Absolutely. And what I've learned over the years too is that investing and just our personal finance in general is so emotional. And so it makes all the sense in the world that I love buying Apple products. And I go into the stores and everyone's in there buying stuff. And so it must be a great investment. And it's not that it may or may not be a great investment, but the point is we end up being overly concentrated, and it's hard to kind of pull ourselves out of that thinking.
Yeah.
It's almost like a rabbit hole that's really easy to get into. And like a lot of other things in life, it's really good to have a second set of eyes or an indifferent party advising you and really giving you a little bit more perspective than you tend to have on your own. And so a la a high quality financial life planner.
Well, and as you're talking, one thing that's hitting me, as you mentioned Apple as an investment, but it also made me think of the food, since we're talking about nutrition and money. And just the same way, like kale is very popular right now. Various superfoods are very popular right now. But literally, if that's all you ate was kale and kimchi, after a while your body would revolt because it would want some blueberries and some apples and some raspberries and some nuts and other things as well. And so if you just are so concentrated, even though it may very well be great, what it is that you are digesting, whether it's a single investment or a single food source, you need diversity. And I think that's one of the bigger mistakes I see people making. And one that I can see outside financial advice being particularly helpful with, because it pulls you out of the emotions and says, hey, warning, you've got too much kale and kimchi on your plate. You need to get your investments spread out into some apples and blueberries. So
that's right. Another thing that I think is interesting, and this is a little bit of a tangent, but I'm going to say it anyways.
Yeah.
I think you'll agree. There are these patterns that happen literally in investment portfolios that play out the same way in life also. So this idea of familiarity and safety,
yeah,
I've experienced it and I see it play out in relationships.
Yep.
You may not be in the right relationship, but because it's familiar, it feels safe and it's scary to get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And the same could go for a job.
Yep.
It could not be the job that you're really meant to be doing, but because it's familiar, it seems safe. The reality is it may be way more dangerous for your life to stay in that relationship or to stay in that job. But there's psychological things going on that makes it difficult for us to see that sometimes at the time. So I just think it's fascinating how these patterns really play out. I mean, in investing, in life, and I love kind of making all the connections and talking about all the similarities between life and finances.
Well, here's another connection for you, because the next insight that that I just love that you say in the piece is, don't believe that if you could just make more money, you would be happier. Tell us why you feel this is the case.
Just like with losing weight and getting into better health, get into better shape. Studies have shown that you've got to have your mind right and your heart right, and I mean not physical heart, but self-confidence and joy in life to really excel and hit these goals.
Mm-hmm.
It's really easy to think that if I just lose that weight, or if I can just add another $50,000 to my annual income, I will get to this much better place. And I'm here to tell you, take it from someone who's worked with a bunch of clients over the years, that just personal experience. If you're not a financial advisor, it's hard to have this personal experience. But with personal experience, I see over and over that regardless of the amount of income, more income and more assets do not fix problems that are deeply rooted issues when it comes to, so I'll talk about a couple of them. Communication with a spouse. More money doesn't fix the communication. You might think that it might improve your financial situation, but if you're arguing about money in a certain form or fashion previously, add more income to it, chances are, if the root cause wasn't addressed, chances are those same type of arguments around the exact same type of issues are going to continue to persist. It's also with spending. We talk about this when I think I've read some of your materials, Manisha, about do you call it life creep or lifestyle creep?
Yep.
Lifestyle creep, right? We have an open room, we fill it with stuff. We have an extra closet or storage space, it tends to get filled with stuff. If we have extra income, we tend to fill it with stuff, the stuff being expenses. And it seems like almost that's kind of a natural thing that we have to really, try to be cognizant of and avoid. But yeah, I can tell you that I've seen folks make a lot more money, and if those really core issues aren't addressed, it doesn't add one iota of happiness to their situation. And that's sad. As a financial life planner, and I know all the work you do, Manisha, it's all about happiness and joy and contentment at the end of the day when it comes down to it. Yes, we get all the financial stuff right, and we do that the right way. But if at the end of the financial planning process, there's not more joy and happiness and transparency and peace of mind brought to your life, what's the point of any of it? At least that's how I feel.
Well, and I'm noticing this tipping point. So I'm turning 47 in August. And so I've been in the industry now for 25 years. And I started back in the period when the original Wall Street movie came out, and there was Gordon Gekko, and the phrase "greed was good" wasn't just a movie saying, it literally was the mantra of my whole generation, I think. And now I'm really heartened. I feel like I'm seeing more and more articles and conversations about the phrase enough and what is enough, and not in a sense of not in a scarcity sense, but in an abundance sense. How do we think about enough? How do we measure enough? How do we feel enough in every possible way, shape, or form? And I feel like that feeds into exactly what you're saying here with your point that just more money doesn't necessarily make you happier, just like being skinnier doesn't necessarily alter all of the other problems in your life. Not that you shouldn't try and have a healthy income, or you shouldn't try and have a healthy body, but to know that the core issues need to be addressed. And speaking of the core issues, you also make several points in the piece related to the importance of having a game plan and somebody to hold you accountable. So you mentioned create goals and make a plan, monitor your progress, hire a coach. Can you tell us the connection between nutrition and fitness around those pieces of advice?
We hire people and buy things today in 2017 all the time to help us do exactly that. We hire personal trainers. We buy P90X or one of the other, 100 awesome workout programs that are out there. We wear Fitbits. We track on our phones now, our exercise, and we track our steps. I do all these things, by the way. And unfortunately, we just don't tend to do that nearly as much on the financial side. Mm-hmm. And all the same benefits are available on the financial side. I can hand somebody, a client or, a friend, the P90X of financial plans. Like, if you do this, you're going to be in the best financial shape of your life. Yeah. Fantastic. What we know is that not everybody that buys P90X goes and gets in the best shape of their life. In fact, I don't know what the real percentages are, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's a very small percentage of folks that actually, buy a program like that and then end up getting into the best shape of their life. So what do we do? Well, the importance of hiring a coach, a financial advisor. It can be so helpful. If a financial advisor, one of my, other big mentors, Larry Swedrow, he always used to say, if I could help a client avoid even 3 or 4 of the endless number of mistakes, financial mistakes that one can make over a 30, 40, 50-year financial life, I will have done, I will have proved my value over and over again. I really do believe that. I've seen this, again, play out over and over again, personal experience working with clients. And so setting goals and having a coach and monitoring progress, which is revisiting the goals. Mm-hmm. This is where we want to be. Here's where we are now. Mm-hmm. And what do we need to do to go from here to there? And then tomorrow and next month and next year, we're in a different place. So we need to revisit and remonitor. And doing that can be so incredibly valuable. Now, I'm a financial advisor, so I clearly, I'm biased here, but I love what I do, and I'm biased because I've seen it play out in real life so many times. Yeah. So imagine, if Manisha, the next invention I think that you should create is a Fitbit for our financials, and maybe even something that gives us a little buzz when we're about to make a decision that is not in our best financial interest. But yes, monitoring, tracking, and having a coach is so essential. A great financial advisor, and there are lots of them out there, is an accountability partner and also a catalyst. Someone to give you that nudge to get you to take action and get certain things done and whatnot. So not just somebody that just manages your investment portfolio, but an accountability partner, a coach, a motivator, all those good things are just, in my mind, invaluable in both fitness and nutrition and in our financial lives.
I love the phrase accountability partner, because both parts of those I think are so important. The accountability to make sure you actually do it, but the partner to make it feel more joyful and to bounce ideas off of and to make sure that it results in the actual life that you want to have. I think what I've observed over the years is so often there's this disconnect between, like, there's money and then there's your life. But really the two go hand in hand. And I think people oftentimes find the topics of personal finance and investing so boring or overwhelming or complex or mundane or stressful that they can't even see the connection of those things to having a better relationship with their spouse, being able to do things for their kids or their extended family, or engage in hobbies or dreams that you've had for years that you'd like to do more with, and people have lost that disconnect. And I think the accountability partner can help you take the right steps, but then also enable you to see in real time what those steps are going to mean for your actual life. And I feel like that's in the 25 years that I've been in the industry, that's the big sea change that I've seen with advisors, is that it's really shifted from when I first started, you hired an advisor that just took care of your money, and, whether they knew anything about you or not was irrelevant. And now it's really about good advisors, people who do holistic financial life planning like you do. It's about really getting to know the person 360, and the money is really just the tool, if you will.
I totally agree. And I'm going to make yet another connection here between nutrition, because you just reminded me of something. You know how, so these days the term organic actually it could mean a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
Sometimes it means it's, pesticide free, or sometimes it means not necessarily that it's pesticide free, but if the soil that it was grown in was a certain way. And there are now all these different distinctions and terms getting convoluted. And so the same thing is happening with the term financial advisor. The term financial advisor could mean so many different things, and it's hard to navigate that. It's just like sometimes when I go into the store and I think I'm reading labels, I think I know what I'm looking for, and I find out through an article I read a few weeks later that, it's not as actually as healthy as I thought it was for me. The term financial advisor, unfortunately, there's not much regulation around it. So you could be a pure salesperson, call yourself a financial advisor. If I'm not mistaken, you could have zero experience in the financial world at all and start a financial coaching business and call yourself a financial advisor. Now, I'm not saying that all people that do that are, not well-meaning and don't have value to add. What I am saying, though, is it becomes really difficult to navigate, what these different terms mean. And so I think for listeners out there, it's not so much what the person is called. You'll know when you've got a good what we'll call financial life planner, by the questions they ask and how much listening they do. When they're not doing all the talking and they're doing a lot of listening, you've got a good advisor. And when you're not just talking about the asset classes in your portfolios and your meetings, but you're talking about what's going on in your life, you've got a good advisor. So keep an eye out for that.
I love that. And I'll add one last thing, which is when you're reading labels, one label I like to see is a CFP, which shows that an advisor has gone through a rigorous program to become a certified financial planner, practitioner. And there are other designations that can be very helpful as well, but that is for holistic financial life planning. That's my favorite one to see on the label of an advisor. Chris, this has been wonderful. If people want to learn more about you and the work you do at Enlightened Wealth Management out in Santa Monica, California, where can people go to find out about you?
Well, the best place is going to be my website. So Enlightened WM for wealth management. So enlightenedwm.com, and find me on Facebook. You can subscribe to my list and get helpful financial information and learn all about the different things we do at Enlightened Wealth Management. Those are the two best places to find more articles I've written and to learn more about how we do things.
Well, thank you so much for being with us here today. And I hope this afternoon you'll be able to go out and do something really healthy in California, like surfing or running on the beach or something like that. Knowing how fit you are, I have a hunch one of those is in the future. So,
admittedly, I did already work out this morning. Also, admittedly, I haven't for about 2 weeks. So I'm human just like everybody else.
Well, and that's the perfect note to end on. We're all human. And by following just a few of these tips, I think that listeners can really start to develop a more comfortable relationship with money. And to me, the thing I really was excited to have people hear from Chris was just the deep similarities between nutrition and money, so that when money starts to overwhelm you, you can start to think about it in terms that maybe are a little bit more comfortable for you. And I think that he's done a great job of doing that here today. And in the blog post that I will send this video out along with, I will make sure to put the link to the full article so that you can read it there as well. So Chris, thanks again so much for joining us.
Thank you, Manisha. All of your listeners are so blessed to have you in their life. And thank you for all the great work that you do. And thanks for having me.
Thank you.